I never thought my story would sound like something ripped straight from Reddit, but betrayal changes you. It cracks you open, strips away the person you were, and leaves behind something colder, something sharper. It all started during my second year of college. I was majoring in computer science, broke as hell, and sharing a small off-campus apartment with my best friend, or who I thought was my best friend, Jake. Jake and I had known each other since high school. He was the kind of guy everyone liked. Charming, funny, always the life of the party. I was quieter, more focused. We balanced each other out. When we got into the same college, it felt like destiny. We moved in together freshman year, split rent, cooked ramen together, played video games till 3 a.m., and laughed at how miserable we were during finals. I trusted him like a brother. Then came Sarah. I met her during my sophomore orientation. She was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that made you nervous. She had this easy laugh, and a confidence that drew people in. We clicked almost immediately. Before I knew it, she was spending more and more time at the apartment. Jake got along with her too. They'd joke, share memes, sometimes all three of us would watch movies together. At first, I thought it was perfect. My best friend and my girlfriend getting along? That's the dream. But dreams turn to nightmares real fast. It started with little things. Sarah got distant. At first, it was small. She took longer to reply to texts, canceled plans at the last minute, seemed distracted when we were together. I figured it was stress. College, assignments, social life, it wears people down. But then she started lying. I didn't want to believe it, but her stories stopped lining up. One night she said she was staying late in the library. I happened to stop by on my way home, and she wasn't there. I brushed it off, told myself not to be paranoid. But that unease, that gut feeling, it wouldn't go away. Then, one night, it happened. I was working the evening shift at the campus cafe. Business was slow, and my manager let me leave early. It was around 9 p.m. when I walked back to the apartment. I was smiling to myself. I'd surprise Sarah, maybe bring her some leftover pastries, and we'd hang out. But the moment I stepped through the door, something felt off. The lights were dim. The air was thick, heavy. And there, on the couch, was Jake, sitting way too close to Sarah. They froze when they saw me. Jake jumped like he'd been caught stealing. Sarah's face turned white. I just stood there. For a few seconds, my brain refused to believe what I was seeing. Then I looked at their faces, guilty, terrified, caught. "Hey," Jake stammered. "We were just, watching a movie." "Right," I said. My voice sounded calm, but my chest was pounding. I looked at Sarah. "You said you were too tired to hang out tonight." She couldn't even look at me. The silence stretched until it was unbearable. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just grabbed my keys, turned around, and walked out. I walked for hours that night. No direction. Just walking. You know that hollow feeling after betrayal? It's like you're there, but not really. Like your mind is screaming but your body's on autopilot. That was me. When I finally got back to the apartment, Jake's door was closed. Sarah was gone. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, they both acted like nothing happened. Jake made small talk. Sarah texted me like normal. When I confronted her, she swore up and down that nothing was going on, that I was overreacting. Jake told me I was being insecure. They tried to gaslight me. But I knew what I saw. You don't forget that kind of tension between two people. The nervous laughter. The too long glances. The guilt. That's when the sadness started to die and anger took its place. I realized something important. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd forgive them. They had no idea who they were dealing with. So I started planning. Jake had always been sloppy with money. He'd forget to pay his half of the rent, or claim he was short this month. I'd cover for him, because that's what friends do, right? Not anymore. I started tracking everything. Every missed payment. Every unpaid bill. Every empty beer bottle left around the apartment, even though the lease clearly said, no alcohol. Jake also had this bad habit of leaving his stuff everywhere. Dirty laundry, dishes, half-eaten food. The place was a mess because of him. So I started taking pictures. Quietly. Methodically. Meanwhile, I acted like nothing had changed. I smiled. Joked. Pretended to believe their lies. Sarah started getting bolder again, showing up when Jake was around, staying late, laughing at his stupid jokes. They thought I was a fool. I wasn't. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Jake borrowed my laptop one afternoon to finish an assignment. I let him, because by then, I had an idea. When he returned it, I checked my background recording app. I'd set it to auto-start when the camera turned on. And what do you know? I had a recording. I pressed play and listened. There it was, Jake and Sarah, alone in my room, laughing. Talking about how stupid I was. How, it's kind of his fault for not paying attention. And then Jake said it, the sentence that burned itself into my mind. He'll never find out. He trusts me too much. I sat there, shaking. Half from rage, half from disbelief. I replayed the audio 3 times. I wanted to be absolutely sure before I made my next move. And when I was sure, really sure, I started putting the pieces together. Jake didn't know it, but the lease was in my name. He was technically my subtenant. That meant if he violated any terms, late rent, drinking, mess, or causing disturbances, I had grounds to remove him. And he'd done all of that. Repeatedly. So I compiled everything. The photos, the late payments, the empty bottles, the audio recording, which, even though it wasn't about the lease, didn't paint him in a flattering light. Then I scheduled a meeting with our landlord. The guy was an older man, gruff but fair. When I showed him everything, he didn't even hesitate. Yeah, he said. This kid's out. I've given him too many chances already. That was it. The eviction notice went out 2 days later. When Jake found out, he stormed into my room, waving the paper in my face. Dude, what the hell? You told him? You're really gonna screw me over like this? I looked him dead in the eye and said, you screwed yourself. He froze. The look on his face, confusion, guilt, fear, was almost satisfying enough. Almost. He begged me to talk to the landlord, to fix it. He said he had nowhere to go. I just shrugged. Should have thought of that before sleeping with my girlfriend. His jaw dropped. I didn't wait for an answer. I turned back to my laptop, put on my headphones, and let him stand there in silence. When he finally left, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. He moved out a week later. Sarah stopped coming around. Word started spreading among our mutual friends. People whispered. Jake's reputation tanked overnight. He stopped showing up to class. I heard he was crashing on someone's couch across town. As for me, I got peace. For the first time in months, I could breathe. But the story doesn't end there. Because a few months later, Jake came back. And that's when things got really interesting. It was supposed to be over. Jake had moved out. Sarah had ghosted both of us. And for a while, life was peaceful again. I'd started focusing on classes, hitting the gym, hanging out with new friends. I wasn't exactly over it, but I was moving on. Slowly. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from an unknown number. Miss me? I didn't need to ask who it was. Jake. For a second, I just stared at the screen, half in disbelief, half amused. The audacity. The man I kicked out, exposed, and humiliated was texting me. I ignored it. A few minutes later, another one. You really think you won, huh? Then another. Enjoy it while it lasts, loser. At first, I thought he was just angry, venting. But a week later, strange things started happening. My project files went missing. My email password stopped working. And then, one night, my professor emailed me saying my term paper had been flagged for plagiarism. I knew immediately what had happened. Jake had been in my laptop plenty of times when we lived together. He knew my passwords, my logins, my habits. He was trying to destroy my academic record. At first, panic hit. My hands literally shook as I tried to explain to my professor what was happening. But I had something Jake didn't. Receipt. When I'd realized how low he could go, I'd already started protecting myself. Changing accounts, keeping logs, even backing up data to external drives. So when I met my professor in person, I brought everything. Timestamps, backups, old logs showing the exact version history. The professor reviewed it, nodded slowly, and said, "Looks like someone else tried to access your files. We'll take care of it." Jake's little stunt didn't just fail, it backfired. The university traced the unauthorized access back to his IP address. And that's when I decided it was time to end this once and for all. He wanted to play dirty? Fine. I was done being the quiet one. Remember Sarah? The girl who'd vanished after the fallout? Turns out she didn't disappear completely. One night, while scrolling through Instagram, I saw her story, tagged at a party. Guess who was in the background? Jake. They were back together. That's when it hit me. Jake wasn't just trying to mess with me. He wanted to prove he'd won. Like betraying me, stealing my girlfriend, and getting kicked out wasn't enough, he needed to rub it in. So I gave him what he wanted. An audience. I created a new anonymous Reddit account, one that looked like a random college student venting about his toxic roommate. Then I posted. My roommate tried to ruin my college career after sleeping with my girlfriend. I detailed everything, how Jake had betrayed me, how he'd been evicted, and how he tried to frame me for plagiarism. I didn't use real names, but I added just enough detail that anyone from our college could figure it out. The post blew up overnight. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments. People were furious, calling Jake a snake, a backstabber, a walking red flag. By the next day, half our campus had seen it. Someone even cross-posted it to the college subreddit with Jake's name in the title. Isn't this about Jake from Sigma House? That's all it took. His reputation, already shaky, imploded. People stopped inviting him to parties. Group projects dropped him. Even Sarah deleted her photos with him. He became a social ghost. But I wasn't finished. A month later, Jake tried to transfer into a new dorm. He needed a reference from his previous landlord, the same landlord I'd worked with to evict him. Guess who he listed as a contact? Me. He probably thought I'd ignore it. Instead, I responded. Politely. Professionally. Jake was previously my subtenant. Unfortunately, he was evicted for repeated lease violations, including property damage and late rent. Would not recommend for shared housing. It wasn't slander. It wasn't exaggeration. It was the truth. That message sealed his fate. The housing office denied his request. A week later, he showed up outside my class, disheveled, furious, eyes bloodshot. He waited until I came out and grabbed my arm. What the hell is your problem, man? You just can't let it go, can you? I looked at him, this broken version of the guy who used to think he owned the world, and said, You lit the fire. I just let it burn. He opened his mouth to yell, but I walked away. Didn't look back. That was the last time I saw him in person. Months passed. Life moved on. I graduated, landed an internship, and started feeling like myself again. Then one night, I was on Reddit, scrolling aimlessly, when I saw a familiar username in the comments of another revenge post. Jake. He'd made a throwaway account, replying under someone's story about betrayal. His comment read, Sometimes you mess up and lose everything. But sometimes, you meet the wrong person and they destroy your life just for fun. It had 0 upvote. No one replied. I don't know why, but I laughed. Because for once, Jake was right. He did meet the wrong person. He met me. People often ask if I regret what I did. Sometimes, late at night, I think about it, how everything spiraled, how we went from brothers to enemies. But then I remember standing in that apartment doorway, seeing Sarah and Jake on that couch, their faces pale and guilty. And I know I wouldn't change a thing. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about anger. It's about closure. It's about taking back control from the people who took it from you, and walking away knowing, you didn't just survive. You won.